Hello everyone, it's Luke here, and I've been learning to program, doing some self-teaching using different resources online, and I want to share with you guys my top 5 for learning programming on your own. At number 5 is the Solo Learn app that you can use on your phone. There are other apps like this for mobile devices. This is just the one that I used. And for my opinion, it is fine for learning the basics. It got me going. It got me to understand some of the basics concepts of learning to program, whether that was Python, C#, HTML. However, there were definitely a few things about it that I didn't quite enjoy as much as the other resources. First of all, the free version isn't the best. You have to pay if you want the premium mode, which gives you an unlimited amount of hearts and accesses some of the other practice tools. Also, just being on a phone in general is way more tedious to code than it is on a desktop or a laptop. So that's just one of the things that I found myself wanting to go to the desktop version of Solo Learn, even though some of the features are missing on the desktop version. While some of the lessons were very helpful, some lessons weren't as well thought out, and some of the examples were just a little bit confusing, so you had to read through some of the comments to really understand some of the concepts better. At number 4 on my list is freecodecamp.org. Now, this is an excellent resource, and it probably would get higher up on my list if I used it more, but this I just didn't dive deep enough into. There's a massive amount of tutorials, a progression system to go through different languages, and I'm sure if you went through all of the tutorials, you would learn a ton about programming. For me, I just use this resource mostly just to learn the basics of HTML and CSS, and what I didn't like about it is that it felt like they were telling me too much what to do, not enough explanation, and I didn't feel like I got to play around with my code, so I didn't retain as much as some of the other resources. Now, they also do have a massive library on YouTube, which we'll talk about here in a moment. So there's definitely lots of great resources here, and I 100% recommend it. And again, if I dove deep into it a little bit more, I'm sure this would be even higher on my list. At number 3 is the free Harvard CS50 class. You can go to their website, sign up, and follow along for free. You can also just go to their YouTube and watch the lessons again for completely free. Now, it's not the quickest way to learn programming that I've found, but what it is it's super engaging, it's super fun, and they break down really hard concepts into some basics and really good illustrations. So I felt like I learned not just about programming, but how computers work in general and breaking down to the very basics. So if you want to learn more than just programming, you want to learn about the actual computer science part and how computers work in general, this is a great program to do that. And you'll, of course, learn to program alongside it as well. Just you're going to be starting with the very nitty-gritty basics, so you won't be just, developing these huge apps right away. Not that in the other ones I've been building massive apps yet either. I'm still learning a lot. Just more so the fact that you start learning in C, and really C is an older language that's really not as practical that I've found. At number 2 is simply YouTube. Of course, on YouTube, there's going to be people posting stuff from everywhere, so you have to be a little bit careful. Not every tutorial is going to be the best tutorial, but what I loved about YouTube tutorials is that I could pick exactly what I wanted to learn, experiment with a project that I thought was fun, and I think you retain a lot more, at least I did, learning through interests. For example, I definitely have an interest in game design and game development, so I learned a lot from Clear Code, learning to program different things in Pygame. I learned a lot from Free Coding Camp, learning Python and building a Pong and getting to experiment with that. Brackeys was one of my favorites, doing a tutorial in C# so that I could learn a little bit more about the Unity engine. And in 6 episodes of his introduction to C#, I was already building my own text-based games using functions, classes, arrays, and more. Again, I'm sure there's tutorials out there that are not so great or not as helpful as others, so you have to be a little bit picky when you are looking for tutorials. This leads me to my advice and my number 1 pick, which is a little bit of a cheesy pick. It's not really an actual pick, but my number 1 tip, my number 1 free resource is just start playing around with your own code and your own programs. Honestly, whatever resources you use, there are tons of free resources that I didn't even get to list today that I'm sure that you can also use and would be just as great. But my recommendation, the things that helped me retain the most so far, that's helped me to learn, is just to always go off script, explore, experiment, whatever that the tutorial is doing, do it and then add to it, go a little bit crazy. As I said, I took Brackeys tutorial and I made my own text-based game. When I was learning, Python in a Pong-based tutorial, I took the Pong game and I made it into a 3-player Pong. If you are just simply copying and pasting what you are doing in a tutorial, you're not going to really understand it. You're not going to get to see how the thing works. You're just going to copy paste, and then it's probably going to be dumped from your brain because you didn't actually get to apply it yourself. So those are my top 5 resources. I've now signed up for a coding bootcamp, so I'm going to be jumping into Coding Dojo and learning that way as well. Of course, that costs a chunk of tuition. So those aren't free resources, but I'm excited to see how that compares to my time self-teaching versus now going through a coding bootcamp. And I'm going to be talking about that in future videos. If you guys have some free resources that you love as well, drop them in the comments below, share with others, and hopefully you guys can all learn more as I'm learning to code as well. Thank you. Gracias for watching. See you guys next time.